Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. Welcome, everybody.
This is our EV portion. Got a lot to talk about today. What you see behind us here is a factory that could be the BYD factory that is growing in Changzhou, China.
There's a lot of smog there.
Yeah, there is.
Those are some massive buildings. I know that we're going to be talking a little more about the BYD factory and how that factory is going to be one of the largest factory complexes in the world.
Yes. Yep. Amazingly so. And I've got a picture here that I lost. That. Oh, let's see. Try again. Here we go. If we can pop up that picture, guys, even though I'm still struggling trying to get it full screen here. There we go. What we have here is the construction progress on the Los Angeles diner. Remember, it is supposed to be open here soon, and it's a combination supercharger. They've been working on it for the past year and a half or so, and this is the recent update, which now is beginning to show solar canopies as it gets closer to completion. They have 3 of them apparently, and this should be a very energy efficient building. They are still working on getting the canopies installed at this point, and also working on the version 4 stalls that you see there, the charging stalls, which they say are nearly completed. They don't have the paving done yet. They are still looking, they have yet to announce an opening date for this diner and supercharger combination. And they've been hiring since August of last year, actually, posting a job description as Tesla Diner Experience Specialist. What's the acronym? TDES. All right, not bad. So they began construction of this diner supercharger location, if you remember, September of 2023. And multiple construction approvals and permitting processes, which in California is a challenge, have slowed this down a bit, but it's currently underway, and as soon as we get a opening date, we'll certainly report on that. Now, the idea for this Tesla diner originally came about from a conversation with Elon Musk in 2018, and the company also registered the trademark for its logo to cover restaurant services in 2021.
Yeah, this is a fascinating and really cool looking particular diner. Love how all the white underneath actually lights up at night. They're all LED lights. I don't know, but I think that the black that looks like panels really are solar panels all around the edges as well.
Would be cool. Yeah.
And I can't wait to see this thing in action. I wonder, at Sunset Boulevard, which is where it's at in Santa Monica, one of the busiest streets in all of town, all that area of town. How long is it going to be until you don't have a long wait just to get into the parking lot? Yeah.
There will probably be lines around the block. And the other thing that I'm concerned about is this current anti-Tesla sentiment, and how will that play into this type of a facility for Tesla. You know what I saw this morning? There was we're in an automotive hub here, basically. We've got a lot of commercial businesses in our compound here that cater to the automotive enthusiasts, a variety of different ones. But so it's not uncommon to see transporters showing up. This morning there was one in front of our building here, actually.
Oh, I did see that one.
And in the middle of it, did you see the Cybertruck?
I sure did. Right. I sure did.
And as I looked closer, it looked like somebody had kicked the door a few times on the Cybertruck. I couldn't tell whether there was any dimpling or any damage. It just looked like scuff marks. But
considering what we've seen recently, we showed it last week, the bomb that went off in the Cybertruck, and the truck's construction is so strong that it forced the explosion up instead of out. I just hope the person didn't break their foot on the door.
It is a pretty robust truck, that's true, yeah. All right, so we've got another interesting article here, and this one has to do with, and I'm going to bring up another image for you here, and let that soak in as we talk about this next article. This has to do with Stellantis. And the article goes like this: Stellantis is planning on reintroducing the Hemi lineup of V8s this August. Wasn't it just last week we reported on their first attempt at making an EV?
Yes.
And how we thought they fell short? Well, maybe they were listening, and now they decided, well, we're going to go with a Hemi. That's time tested and proven, right?
Maybe maybe they think speakers in the back rear end of the car and the muffler is not the right thing to do.
Right. So this is a report from Mopar Insider, one of the magazines that caters to that, the people interested in that. And it says that the production of the Hemi engine will be moved to Dundee Engine Plant in Michigan, and it will include the 5.7 liter, the 392 6.4 liter, which is, and the Hellcat supercharged 6.2 liter V8 engines. And this is a report that actually, or this is a process that began to take shape after a CEO change to Tim Kuniskis, who replaced Carlos Tavares last December. My only, well, I have a number of thoughts about this, being a Mopar faithful. This, folks, is a Mopar. This is a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner. You can tell by the front grille. And that has a 426 Hemi engine in it. Now, what is a Hemi engine? Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah.
Hemi stands for hemispherical, and it's the design of the combustion chamber. Unlike a wedge or a flat top where you have your valves on top and the piston coming up for combustion,
Right.
with a hemispherical engine, you have a rounded surface, which gives you more chamber and also more space for valves, which is important to bring in fuel and get rid of exhaust. So this design allows for improved airflow and combustion efficiency. The larger valves enhance power output, and typically a Hemi engine produces more power and torque than your average internal combustion engine. They are also larger, heavier, more steel, and complexity as well, and of course expense. I remember a day in the 70s when, or a time period when you could buy Hemi engine cars for next to nothing because of the OPEC holding us up for ransom.
Oh,
with fuel.
sure.
Yep. Nobody wanted gas guzzlers at that point in time. They were all looking for Datsun-type vehicles that had extraordinarily great, mileage.
Yeah, and I can certainly see how having I would assume that the hemispherical portion of the combustion chamber is on the top of where the piston goes.
Correct, yeah.
And so that adds extra space. Of course, you have a bigger area for the explosion to occur, so it's going to add extra extra fuel in order for the piston to be able to work. But on the flip side, it allows you to have a larger chamber, which gives you more horsepower and more torque.
Right. And the cost differential for a Hemi engine versus non-Hemi in 1970s dollars, when you could buy cars for $3,000, the Hemi option, the 426 Hemi, was an $800 option.
Wow.
Which is really substantial when you consider that in today's dollars it's 10 times more, so that would be an $8,000 add-on.
Yeah, wow.
But they rule the streets. So that is my vision of what a Hemi engine belongs in. Now let me show you what it will most likely end up being in. And here's another image. This is the Dodge Hellcat, which has definitely some definite performance, street credibility, let's say.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't look like something to me that should have a Hemi engine in it. So those are my thoughts, and I'm probably aging myself, but if you agree, let us know. So Hemis are going to start showing up in these cars. But the final question is, at this stage in automotive evolution, is it wise for a company like Stellantis to revive a gigantic gas-guzzling ICE engine beast?
Dodge obviously thinks that there's a market for this. Whether there is or not remains to be seen. Just like Tesla thought there was a market for a triangular topped automobile, the Cybertruck.
Right.
Cybertruck sales have not been what we thought they were, what Tesla announced they were going to be. We'll see whether or not the Hemi engine sales are what Dodge thinks they're going to be.
Right.
I'm suspect. I don't see the automotive industry going in that direction.
Absolutely. And, we have a deadline that is going to be perhaps loosely enforced, but 2035 is when most counties in the United States, even countries are beginning to proclaim that they will not allow ICE engine production anymore.
Right.
Well, that's only that's 11 years away, 10 years away now. And they say that by 2042, the prediction is there will be less than 10% of gas stations remaining because of the reduced demand. Well, I can assure you a Hemi engine is not exactly a fuel-efficient car. It is a gas guzzler, and so with a shortage of gasoline stations, I'm not sure how you're going to continue to operate that vehicle. Looks like we've got some comments coming in here.
Yes, we do, a couple of them. LinkedIn user says, is it just me this morning? No, thankfully, I think there are other people on. We have another comment that came in as well.
And then YouTube, MI, says, yo, I used to have a 69 Meep Meep about the Plymouth. Well, that was a Roadrunner. And like you, I also had a 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner with a 4-speed Hurst transmission, manual transmission, and painted it the original color, except improved the color a bit. It was kind of a pale yellow back in the day, and I ended up actually putting a Mustang color on it, which was a bit brighter. But those were cool cars. I had to put traction bars on it in order to keep those wheels from hopping because of the torque and horsepower.
Of course. My next door neighbor, an older retired guy, he was an engineer from Los Angeles, came up to Idaho and retired, and had a 1970 Javelin sitting in his driveway.
Nice.
And I loved that car, and he would never drive it more than about 25 miles an hour. And we were just like, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we were like too. Is like, just drive it already.
Yeah, enjoy it. Yep.
He just wanted to baby the thing.
All right, so Stellantis, we'll see if this turns out to be successful for them. We have our doubts, but there are definitely some other directions that they could go. All right, so getting back to the BYD article now. The headline here from Business Insider is, it's clickbaity. More trouble for Tesla as China's BYD crosses 100 billion barrier. And they say that China's best-known automaker, BYD, saw sales explode in 2024, selling over 500,000 more cars than forecast. And hit 100 billion in revenue. And they're planning on building a factory or continuing to expand their factory to make it larger than even the city of San Francisco.
That's really, it's an impressive sized factory that they have. One of the things I think is notable, BYD, of course, has made models for all kinds of different drivers and different market segments. They have a huge addressable market. One article that I read talked about how BYD has abandoned the ICE engine and has gone all electric, and that since that time their growth has been like a hockey stick. But then at the same time, it says, but most of their cars are hybrids.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Same article, same author.
And as impressive as that it's actually $107 billion in 2024 revenue. It's not all EVs at all. It's a combination, like you mentioned, hybrids, garbage trucks, delivery vans, a lot of ICE construction. It is a 30-year-old automaker, by the way, and they have some rapid growth that is going on right now. It has become the new Chinese powerhouse for auto manufacturing. Now, putting all this back in perspective, the Tesla Model Y is still the best-selling EV in China.
Right.
And what do these numbers mean? Well, okay, BYD hit $107 billion in 2024, but that was a mixture of cars. Tesla built only EVs, and they did $97.7 billion. So I don't think they're going to unseat Tesla anytime soon. And of course, our take on it is the more EV manufacturers on the planet, the better.
Yeah, I'm impressed with BYD overall. I would love to see and get my hands on and sit in and drive one of these BYD vehicles.
You'll probably be like Jim Farley. Once you drive one, you'll say, I don't want to drive anything else like his Show Me vehicle. And
Well, maybe you don't know. The other thing I am kind of impressed about is that BYD has had headwinds placed in its way, but they've also had tailwinds. We'll talk about that in a minute. The headwinds are potentially significant tariffs that went into place in Europe in 2024, up to 30%. And of course, the U.S. market has basically been closed to Chinese automobiles now for several years. And so you don't see any BYDs here in the United States.
Right. Well, let's talk about the tailwinds then.
Well, the tailwinds, there's something that, this article says a little bit further. BYD is a company that is something to be studied in a textbook due to its incredible success. And when I read that, I thought, why? What is there to study? How the Chinese government can properly subsidize a company to make it big?
Right.
I mean, and we were talking ahead of time. It's not just BYD that's getting all these subsidies. Everything from the mining operations to the supply chain to BYD, who's manufacturing, to the end users who are buying BYDs are all at every step along the way. They're getting money from the government.
Yep, and there's of course a very powerful commitment there. By the way, getting back to the financials just a bit, Tesla did best BYD in profits at $7.1 billion, which is a 7.3% margin, versus BYD at $5.44 billion with a 5.1% profit margin.
Right.
So the article here, though, goes on, and it says, let's be clear that surpassing $100 billion in revenue and constructing a city-sized factory campus is no small feat.
That's true.
With or without, government intervention and assistance. It is more a declaration of intent, is what they're saying. BYD is proclaiming that it will be the global automotive powerhouse and that the future of electrification could very well be shaped in the halls of its Zhengzhou factory.
Yeah, that's not something that we should take that lightly. The idea that they could be building a single factory complex that's larger than the city of San Francisco is just mind-boggling to me. We've seen these massive factories going in, TSMC here in North Phoenix. They're 7 miles from our studio here. They've got 4 square miles worth of factory space, and we think of them as absolutely massive. Well, that's less than 10% of what BYD is building.
Right, 50 square miles, actually.
Yeah, they're going to do 50 square miles where TSMC is only doing 4 right now.
So the head count, employee count, currently BYD at Zhengzhou employs 60,000 workers. And they plan to bloat that to 200,000 workers from around the world in the coming months. The workers are going to be able to live on site and in company-provided housing and have access to recreational accommodations on site. It'll be a city within a city, basically. And in all, BYD plans to install enough capacity to produce about 1 million cars annually at its Zhengzhou factory, which is enough to cover about a quarter of the overall sales of its new energy vehicles in 2024.
If they're going to have to take 50 square miles to be able to produce 1 million cars, how much space does the Shanghai factory from Tesla take to produce its 1 million cars?
That's a good question. Yeah, we'll have to look at the.
We'll have to look. But
density.
I'm pretty sure that the Shanghai factory is not 50 square miles.
But something that I find interesting here is many years ago, 30 years ago or so, we were aligned with a Chinese data cabling products manufacturer, Ninyi. And our CFO at the time, whose wife was Chinese, actually Taiwanese. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. Taiwanese, all right? There's a difference in their mind. went to China with him to visit and tour the factory. And what they found fascinating was that the workers weren't being paid a lot. First of all, it was less than $1 a day, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we were appalled by that, thinking, "Oh my God, how evil of them, and how self-serving." It turns out that the people working there were really from the countrysides, where the income was even lower than at the factory. And by being able to move and live on the factory premises, their quality of life exponentially improved, including much better education and a future with careers and all of that that would be included. So it's an interesting perspective that I hear again, that there will be on-site accommodations. People will be living at the factory, and with recreational facilities and all of that included.
Well, and I know very little about the Chinese culture. I do know, however, that their culture is a work-oriented culture.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the United States, we have that 40-hour work week culture where people who work 60, 70, 100 hours in a week are frowned down upon by not having balance in life or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
In China, their historical culture is of rice farming. So if you talk about farmers, it's not go out and get the cattle, and it's more rice farming. It's more crop farming, and the ones the way it worked was the first 2 harvests went to pay the taxes and the rulers. The 3rd harvest was the farmers, and it takes rice about 120 days to go from seedling to harvest. Multiply that out. That's 360 days. So typically, the rice farmers extolled the virtues of hard work every day, all day long, as much as 16 hours a day. So for them to go into a factory and work only 6 days, 12 hours a day, to them would seem like a very light schedule compared to what they were doing now.
Fascinating, yes. And of course, you had, in the undeveloped areas of China at the time, infant mortality was extremely high. Healthcare was virtually absent, and so their quality of life definitely improved under these conditions. YouTube, Wayne Waters says, "I wish people would realize by targeting Tesla, they're hurting our fellow Americans, over 125,000 employees that work there." True. The big picture is hurting an American company, which makes BYD and others stronger.
That is so true, Wayne. I've seen the word starting to get out a little bit. When you burn Teslas, when you shoot at cars, you're not hurting. We were talking about this last week too.
Elon.
You're not hurting Elon Musk. Right. You're not hurting the upper management. You're hurting the poor souls who generally have the same type of political beliefs as the people who are committing the violence.
Yeah.
Who just happen to own a Tesla.
Right. Yeah. Fortunately, we've been able to avoid any of that type of carnage and the haters, and even though we have a Tesla shop, which has Teslas all over it,
I've had my first questions of people saying, "What are you guys doing extra to help protect yourselves?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, right now we're known as Gruber Motor Company. We're not necessarily known as Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but yeah, it's something that we have to think about.
Yeah. And my own personal opinion is it's short-lived. I think eventually common sense will prevail. It has to. I mean, it's the absurdity of it all really begins to hit home when you carefully apply some critical thinking skills to any of the stuff that's going on.
Well, and the reality does not necessarily match the political narrative.
Mm-hmm.
We had this article that came out on MSN that where reports are suggesting that Tesla's sinking and Tesla's failing, and Tesla sales are down 70% in Europe and 30% in California, and so on and so forth. But reality is not quite that. Mm-hmm. Here in 2024, this article goes on to say in the U.S. there were 3.2 million EVs and hybrids sold.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The overall automotive market in the United States is about 16.5 million. So that means that this is about 20% of the overall market that is either battery electric EV or plug-in hybrid. That's getting beyond that tipping point, and we're starting that inverted S curve. Ivan Drury, who is the director of insights at Edmunds. Now, people that are familiar with autos know that Edmunds, you've got Kelley Blue Book. There's just a couple of them.
Yeah, they're credible.
They're credible. They're industry insiders. He said, more has happened in the last few months in the EV industry than in the prior 10 years. The transition toward battery-powered vehicles is continuing in full swing. He said, continued to say, leasing has been up nearly to almost 75% of all EVs. This is because of nothing else besides the federal incentives. That's kind of the driving force.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, the federal incentive for buying an electric vehicle of $7,500 is driven based on the vehicle being sourced and manufactured in the United States, something like between 60 and 80%. But that's only for purchases. If you lease a vehicle, you're automatically eligible no matter what vehicle you lease.
Regardless of the manufacturer.
Regardless
where
of
it
the
came from.
manufacturer.
Yeah.
So that means leasing is up to about 75% of all EVs. You combine that with BJ Birtwell, who is the CEO of Electrify Expo, who said, over the last 8 to 12 months, we've seen a phenomenon in our Electrify Expo expositions. What he has seen is a tremendous demographic shift. Starting about 8 to 12 months ago, a new demographic of people started coming to these festivals. That demographic is people who didn't know EV lingo. People who were interested in finding out about what this electric thing is. 2 years ago, 3 out of 4 people understood the lingo and were looking for the car that might suit them best. Now, 3 out of 4 people don't know anything about the lingo, don't understand how the charging works. They're trying to learn it for the first time. In general, they're the conservatives on the political spectrum who now believe that now that the government's not telling them what kind of car they should drive, they need to go figure out for themselves.
Interesting.
And when you combine these cars coming off of lease in the next couple of years, because the typical lease is 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
with a demographic of people who are not interested in the environment, but rather are interested in finding the best value for their dollars. And if it so happens to also have really low cost of ownership, that's a plus to them. You're going to have you have the potential of a tremendous shift for all EV brands to swing it more conservative, to get it more out of the political arena, which honestly in the medium term is going to potentially be a huge boon for Tesla, not troubles.
Fascinating. So, speaking of Tesla for just a moment, remember that Tesla is not just a car company, and that's what people tend to be focused on.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's another headline. Last week, according to TrendForce's latest research, the global humanoid robot market is projected to reach nearly $4 billion by 2028.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah. And of course, using NVIDIA's hardware, and there's a plug for NVIDIA there.
Yes, yes.
But and Tesla, of course, is much more than car. They are humanoid robot, definitely well-centered in that technology and the ability to produce. And then, of course, stationary power. Anyway, it will bode well for Tesla. This latest stock dip was probably one of the best buying opportunities this year so far. And currently, there's a definite reversal in that trend.
Yeah.
It's stabilized and it's beginning to grow again. Got an interesting chart here for you that we can pop up. In the meantime, YouTube, Prabdeep Dhaliwal says, hey, y'all, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
This is a chart I found interesting. Who leads in intelligent driving systems? Well, my assumption was Tesla, of course, but it turns out that they're fairly low on this scale. And this is according to a research firm here. They say 7 out of the top 10 car models featuring the most advanced intelligent driving system belong to Chinese brands, according to the German automotive consulting company. So there you see the lineup and the index score.
You know, only mostly satirical here. How much was P3 paid by Highway, Xpeng, Xiaomi, etc.
Mm-hmm.
to do this study? You know, it's I realize they're a consulting firm. They've got their reputation, so I'm sure that they were not. But that's surprising to see, considering all that Tesla has put into full self-driving.
Yes.
Although I know that it has made the social media rounds of a Tesla Model 3 driving through a wall, a la Wile E. Coyote style, because Tesla is depending just on cameras, where these guys depend on a combination of cameras and LiDAR and other sensors.
And of course, the robo-taxi reveal, that's imminent as well, where we finally have a product that can navigate on the streets.
Yes. TikTok, we have an interesting comment that I want to respond to as well. She says, the money you save in gas will be more than made up by the tires that you have to buy every 20,000 miles. I can tell you from experience, that's not always the case. My wife and I own a Volvo XC40 Recharge, full electric. It has 46,000 miles on it now. We are still running off of the OEM tires. We're just now getting to the point where it's time to replace them. We're probably only going to replace the front tires, though, because the car it came out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And alignment's one of those normal maintenance things that people tend to not do. If we had kept the car a little bit better in alignment, I don't think we'd even be replacing the front tires yet. The back tires still have a lot of wear on them. And this is a dual motor vehicle. Likewise, for the Teslas, we know that Model S tends to have a camber issue.
A wear issue, yes.
There's a wear issue on the tires. I know also at Gruber Motors, we've kind of figured out how to solve for that wear issue.
Mm-hmm.
You eliminate the wear issue and you don't have tire changes every 20,000 miles. Go find a reputable auto shop that can do the more advanced four-wheel alignments, not your $69
right.
Brakes Plus alignment. Get the more advanced one, and you're going to find that your tires will last just fine, and that advice holds true regardless if it's an electric vehicle or not.
Right. Now, having said all that, driving habits have something to do with that.
Absolutely.
When I first got my 2011 Tesla Roadster, I had never experienced this type of off-the-line power before, and I found that within 8,000 miles, my rear tires were bald.
Sure, absolutely.
And what happens with an EV is you're actually wearing in both directions, especially if you have a lead foot. You're also wearing the tires when regen braking kicks in.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and speaking of driving habits, I don't think it's an accident. This is my wife's car.
Mm-hmm.
She drives it, not me.
Okay, that probably helps, yes. Another headline here. California, according to PC Mag, now has more EV chargers than gas pumps. Well, I applaud that. There we go. And, of course, leave it to California to be the state where that happens. I don't think it would have been Tennessee. I don't think it would have been even Arizona, for that matter.
No chargers like that in Texas.
So congratulations, California. We're rooting for you. Keep up the good work. Article here, nearly 100% of lithium recycled in the latest EV batteries in China are at the 100%, near 100% level. What the Chinese battery scientists have been able to do, according to this article, is use a special technique to extract 99.99% of lithium and 97% of the nickel, 92% of the cobalt, and 91% of the manganese from a used lithium-ion battery. Now, this is, of course, these are impressive percentages, but it's really not that new because Redwood Materials, Li-Cycle here in town, for example, it's well known that lithium ion recycling is extraordinarily efficient. It is the essential ingredient of high-grade ore. Rather than mining it in Bolivia, shipping it across their country, going across a boat, eventually ending up at a supply chain or in a manufacturing facility here in the United States, battery recycling has taken on a whole new meaning, and it's amazing that you're in the 90% range for this type of recycling.
Yeah, Redwood Materials has told us in the past that they recycle 95 to 97% of all of the battery components. We don't know what that mix is, but I wouldn't be surprised if that means that they're already getting 99% plus of the lithium. It's pulling lithium out of the battery process, considering it's so light versus nickel, cobalt, magnesium that are much heavier metals. Probably just a matter of a chemical extraction process. And the lithium would be floating toward the top of that process. It is a salt, so I believe it is soluble. And then they would be able to pull that salt out and get it set aside and be able to reconstitute it as pure lithium.
And then, of course, you have, which they didn't mention, the stainless steel for the housings. That should be 100% recyclable as well because the stainless didn't deteriorate under use.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you want to cover your portion with the Tesla sinking article?
Actually, we did cover that portion a little bit because we had talked when I was talking about Tesla's troubles and the boon. One other plug I want to give, though, for the people here in Phoenix, the Electrify Expo is coming to Phoenix, State Farm Stadium over in Glendale, on April 12th and 13th.
It's worth seeing. The State Farm Stadium is our football stadium. It's the big one. The Civic Center normally houses this, but it's nowhere near as large. We've been there. There's a large grounds area, so they'll have a lot of displays. And if you're interested in EVs or the concept of what the future is going to be in transportation, that would definitely be a place to be. April 12th?
It's April 12th and April 13th. They consider it kind of an educational festival. All kinds of EV manufacturers and other related product manufacturers are going to be there. It's a great place for you to look, touch, feel, drive around electric vehicles, especially if you haven't done it before.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us for another segment of the EV podcast that we do every week, Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. We'll see you next week. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Take care.